Ever wish you could conjure up dazzling visual effects in Unreal Engine? Without getting lost in a sea of nodes.
Well, today we're in luck because we're diving into the world of Niagara,
That's right.
and not just the drag and drop kind. We're talking about wielding its power directly in your C+ code.
It's about to get real. We're going to unlock a whole new level of control
Yeah.
and flexibility for those awe-inspiring particle effects, making them dance to your code.
It's like having a secret weapon.
Exactly.
So we're tackling a community tutorial that, at first glance, might look a bit like a mystical incantation.
A little bit, yeah.
But trust me, by the time we're done, you'll be writing C+ code to command Niagara like a true sorcerer, a visual sorcerer.
And this is what makes game development communities so special. This constant sharing of knowledge, these little gems of wisdom, that can save you, honestly, countless hours of head scratching
Oh, yeah.
and open up a world of creative possibilities.
It's like finding a shortcut in a game you've been playing for years.
Exactly.
You're like, wait, I could have been doing this the whole time.
The whole time.
So let's break down this tutorial step by step, highlighting those aha moments that make all the difference.
Absolutely. And I'll be here to chime in, give you those extra bits of context, those deeper layers of understanding that go beyond the what and illuminate the why.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right, this tutorial kicks off with something called build.cs, dependencies. Now, before your eyes glaze over, think of this file like a recipe book for your game project. The first thing you'll encounter in this tutorial might seem a bit cryptic, but it's actually pretty straightforward.
It's true. We often see lines like this in code. And they might seem intimidating, but they're really just about organization.
And speaking of organization, what's the significance of this particular line we see here? Public dependency module names dot adrange, new string, open bracket, quote, core, quote, comma, quote, core U object, quote, comma, quote, engine, quote, comma, quote, input core, quote, comma, quote, UMG, quote, comma, quote, Niagara, quote, close bracket, close parenthesis, semicolon. It feels like we're listing out ingredients for some epic digital dish.
That's a great analogy. And you see that word Niagara nestled right in there.
Oh, yeah.
Among those other essential ingredients. That's our key to unlocking those visual effects. It's essentially telling your Unreal Engine project, hey, I want to tap into the awesome power of Niagara.
So without that line, it's like trying to bake a cake and forgetting, I don't know, the flour.
Exactly. Your project wouldn't know where to find all those cool Niagara tools and functions.
Right.
And that's why the very next step is crucial. Rebuilding the project.
Oh, okay.
This is like preheating the oven to make sure all those ingredients are mixed in properly and ready to work their magic.
It's that moment of anticipation.
Yeah.
Right before the magic happens. Okay, so we've gathered our ingredients, we've preheated our proverbial oven. What's next in this recipe for awesome? And this is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because now we're stepping into the realm of header files.
Ooh.
These might seem a bit cryptic at first,
Right.
but they're actually quite elegant in the way they organize your code.
That's right. Instead of throwing all your code into one giant file,
Okay.
header files let you separate and categorize different parts of your project. It's all about creating a well-structured project, like a well-organized toolbox where everything has its place.
I like that.
And in this case, we're specifically looking at headers like Niagara function library.h and Niagara component.h. Now, how do these headers relate to this broader idea of organization within Unreal Engine and Niagara?
Yeah, it's like we're getting very granular now.
You know, think of it this way. Unreal Engine is like a vast library.
Okay.
And each header file is like a library card
Yeah.
that grants you access to a specific section of books on a particular topic.
So by including Niagara function library.h, we're basically grabbing the library card that lets us explore all the pre-built functions and tools that Niagara has to offer.
Precisely. It's like having a master key to a treasure trove of ready-made code snippets for common Niagara tasks, like spawning effects,
Right.
controlling their behavior, even manipulating their appearance on the fly.
It's like having all the cheat codes.
Yes.
And I'm guessing Niagara component.h is our library card for actually attaching these dazzling effects to objects in our game world.
You got it. Niagara component is like a bridge between the visual spectacle of Niagara and the actual objects in your game.
Okay.
Imagine you're designing a fantastical sword that erupts in flames when swung. Niagara component is what lets you attach that fiery effect to the sword itself.
It's what brings those visual flourishes to life within the game world. Now, the tutorial also throws around this term inheritance, which I have to admit sounds a bit like a concept out of a fantasy RPG itself.
Well, in a way, it is.
Yeah.
Inheritance in programming is like passing down traits and abilities from one generation to the next.
Okay.
It lets us create new classes that inherit properties and behaviors from existing ones, making our code super efficient and organized.
So instead of writing completely new code for every single type of weapon effect, we can use inheritance to create, say, a base weapon effect class and then have more specialized classes like fire effect or ice effect inherit its core properties.
Exactly. It's like having a blueprint that you can then customize to create variations without starting from scratch each time. And the best part is, any changes you make to the base weapon effect class automatically cascade down to the fire effect and ice effect classes. That's the beauty of inheritance.
It's like having a visual effects production line where you can easily create variations on a theme.
Yes,
This is way cooler than just clicking buttons in an editor.
it really is. And the tutorial gives us an example of this in action with a C+ code snippet. That at first glance might look a bit intimidating.
It does seem like we're stepping up the complexity level a bit, but hey, we've got this. What's fascinating about this code is that it's not just about writing lines in a vacuum.
Right.
It's directly connected to those visual elements we see in the Unreal Engine editor.
Absolutely, and this is where the true power of combining Niagara with C shines through.
Yeah.
Remember that image in the tutorial labeled User Exposed Parameter in Niagara?
Right, it showed all those sliders and settings within the editor. It's what makes Niagara so user-friendly, even for those who aren't hardcore coders.
Exactly. Those user exposed parameters are like the control panel for your visual effects, allowing you to fine-tune their appearance and behavior directly within the editor.
So how does our C+ code tap into these parameters? How do we bridge that gap between code and visual customization?
Yeah.
It's like we're taking the best of both worlds.
Right. Exactly. It's like having a puppeteer controlling the strings, but instead of moving limbs, we're tweaking the color of a magical explosion in real time, or maybe, changing the speed and intensity of a swirling vortex of energy. It's so cool. It's like breathing life into those effects, making them dynamic and responsive to the player's actions or the environment. I'm already imagining all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah.
Speaking of possibilities, the tutorial also mentions some links to documentation.
Right.
Now, I know documentation might not sound as exciting as conjuring fireballs with code, but it's actually a treasure trove of information, isn't it?
Absolutely. Think of documentation as your trusty guidebook to this vast and intricate world of Niagara. It might seem dense at first, at first glance, but once you kind of get past that initial intimidation factor, you'll discover a wealth of knowledge about how each function works, what parameters you can tweak, and even practical examples to learn from.
So it's not just about, dry definitions, it's about practical insights and real-world applications.
And I imagine having that deeper understanding can be invaluable when you're really trying to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment.
Right.
The beauty of combining Niagara with C is that you have this incredible sandbox to play in. Try tweaking values in the code, see how those changes manifest in the editor, and don't be afraid to break things. That's often how we learn best.
I love that.
Yeah.
Embrace the experimentation, the trial and error, because that's where the real magic happens. And speaking of embracing the learning process, I noticed the tutorial page also highlights other community-created tutorials. It's like a never-ending rabbit hole of knowledge.
And that's what's so inspiring about the game development community, the spirit of sharing, of learning from each other, and pushing the boundaries of what's possible together. We're all on this journey of discovery, and these tutorials are like signposts, guiding us toward new and exciting destinations.
It's like having this global team of mentors, all eager to share their hard-won wisdom and inspire the next generation of game creators. We've gone from deciphering cryptic lines of code to brainstorming incredible game mechanics, all thanks to the power of Niagara and CC.
Oh, right.
I think we've definitely leveled up our visual effects skills today.
Indeed, we have. And the most exciting part is, this is just the beginning.
Right.
Imagine taking what we've learned today and applying it to a whole range of game genres, from creating breathtaking environmental effects in an expansive open-world RPG, to crafting satisfying combat feedback in a fast-paced action game.
Oh, yeah.
The possibilities are truly limitless.
It's mind-blowing to think about the sheer creative potential that unlocks when you combine the artistic freedom of Niagara with the precision and control of C.
Totally.
We've only scratched the surface today, but it's clear that mastering these tools can open doors to a world of visual storytelling, immersive gameplay.
For sure.
So to our listeners, we leave you with this final thought. What will you create? What visual wonders will you bring to life with this newfound knowledge? Keep experimenting, keep learning, and most importantly, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, happy coding.